The emergency lights bathed the council chamber in red. Councillor Verath's compound eyes reflected the glow as he stood before the assembly. His chitinous hands gripped the podium, and for the first time in his 3 centuries of service, he felt genuine fear. 3 months, he announced to the gathered representatives. 3 months of complete silence from every human colony. 47 worlds. Not a single transmission. The chamber erupted in noise. Species from across the galaxy voiced their opinions, their translators creating a cacophony of overlapping voices. Some celebrated, others expressed concern. Most simply wanted to know what had happened to their neighbors. Admiral Corvin rose from his seat, his scales gleaming under the lights. The Draxi commander had fought humans in 3 border conflicts. He knew them as warriors, as negotiators, as the stubborn species that never backed down from a challenge. Their silence made no sense. Perhaps they finally met an enemy they couldn't defeat, Corvin suggested. His voice carried across the chamber, silencing the others. The humans were aggressive, expansionist. It was only a matter of time before they encountered something stronger. Dr. Mira floated near the ceiling, her crystalline form refracting light into rainbow patterns. The Lumenti scientist had studied human behavior for decades. She had found them fascinating, if somewhat primitive in their emotional responses. "We should investigate," she said, her voice like wind chimes. "This isn't typical human behavior. They're loud. They announce everything. They argue constantly among themselves and with others. This silence is wrong." Verath nodded slowly. "I agree. I've dispatched survey teams to 12 human worlds. They should report back within the week." The Draxi admiral leaned back in his seat. "And if the humans are truly gone? If their worlds stand empty?" A smile crossed Verath's face. It wasn't a pleasant expression. "Then the Interstellar Council will discuss redistribution of those territories. Many species here could use the resources humanity hoarded." The chamber filled with discussion again. Corvin watched them all with calculating eyes. He was already planning. The Draxi Empire bordered human space. If humanity had fallen, his people would be first to claim what remained. The week passed slowly. Counselors returned to their homeworlds. Diplomats filed reports. The galaxy continued its normal business. But in quiet offices and private chambers, everyone waited for news from the survey teams. When the reports finally arrived, they brought more questions than answers. The first team had visited Nova Sol, a thriving human colony of 15 million people. They found the cities running perfectly. Power grids hummed with energy. Automated systems maintained buildings and streets. Transportation networks moved empty vehicles along their routes. But there wasn't a single human anywhere. The second team explored the agricultural world of Greenholm, massive farms stretched across continents, all fully automated. Crops grew in perfect rows. Harvesting machines sat idle, waiting for instructions that never came. The storage facilities were full of food. The homes showed signs of recent occupation, beds unmade, meals half-eaten on tables. Personal belongings scattered normally throughout living spaces. One by one, the reports came in. Every human world told the same story. Functional, operational, empty. Dr. Mira analyzed the data with growing unease. She presented her findings to an emergency council session. "There are no signs of evacuation," she explained. "No evidence of pandemic or war. No environmental catastrophe. The humans simply vanished. All at once. Everywhere." "Impossible," Corvin muttered. "You can't move billions of people without someone noticing. Where are the ships? The supplies? The preparations?" "That's what troubles me most," Mira replied. "We found nothing. It's as if they were here one moment and gone the next." Verath studied the holographic displays showing empty human cities. Something nagged at his mind. A memory from decades ago. A conversation with Captain Hyun. the human liaison officer who used to attend council meetings. Hyun had been quiet for a human, thoughtful. He had once mentioned something about humanity's contingency plans, about how his people always prepared for the worst. Verath had dismissed it as typical human paranoia. Now he wondered if he should have listened more carefully. "I propose we send a larger expedition," Verath said, "to Earth itself. If we're going to understand what happened, we need to investigate their homeworld." The council agreed. Within days, a full investigation fleet assembled, the best minds from a dozen species, the finest equipment the galaxy could provide. They would go to Earth and find answers. Admiral Corvin volunteered to lead the military escort. He told the council it was for security purposes. In truth, he wanted to see humanity's legendary birthplace for himself, and if the humans were truly gone, he wanted to be first to claim it. As the fleet prepared to depart, Dr. Mira floated alone in the observation deck. She watched the stars and thought about the humans she had known. Captain Hyun with his quiet wisdom, the researchers who had collaborated with her on xenobiology projects, the children she had seen playing in human parks, full of energy and curiosity. Where had they all gone? And why? Deep in her crystalline structure, she felt something she had never experienced before when thinking about humans. It wasn't curiosity or academic interest. It was something closer to grief. The fleet jumped to hyperspace, carrying the galaxy's hopes for answers. Behind them, the council chamber stood quiet. The seat reserved for Earth's representative remained empty. It had been empty for 3 months. No one knew it would stay empty for much longer. Earth hung in space like a blue jewel. The investigation fleet emerged from hyperspace and immediately began scanning. Every sensor focused on humanity's birthplace, searching for clues to the greatest mystery the galaxy had ever known. Investigator Thane stood on the bridge of the lead ship, his 6-fingered hands moving across holographic controls. The Quellan detective had solved countless cases across the galaxy. Missing persons, unexplained disappearances, archaeological mysteries. But nothing had prepared him for this. "Population readings?" he asked. The sensor officer, a young civith named Rena, checked her displays. Her quantum processing mind analyzed millions of data points simultaneously. 0 life signs, but the planet is fully functional. Power generation at 70% of historical levels. All automated systems operational. Weather control satellites active. Orbital stations maintaining position. Commander Yule of the Draxi military paced behind them. His clawed feet clicked against the metal floor. "This is a waste of time. The humans are gone. We should be securing their territories, not playing detective." Thane ignored him. "Take us down. I want teams in every major city." The fleet descended through Earth's atmosphere. Ships broke off toward different continents. Thane's vessel headed for the Korean peninsula, toward the sprawling metropolis that humans had called Seoul. The city stretched for miles in every direction. Towers of glass and steel reached toward the sky. Maglev trains sat frozen on their tracks. Holographic advertisements still flickered in empty squares. Everything looked normal, except for the silence. Thane led his team through the streets. Their footsteps echoed off buildings. Somewhere in the distance, a door creaked in the wind. Nothing else moved. They entered an apartment building. The lobby was clean, maintained. A robotic assistant wheeled past them, following its programmed route to check for maintenance issues. It didn't acknowledge the aliens walking through its domain. On the 15th floor, they found an apartment with an open door. Thane stepped inside carefully. The space was small but comfortable. Pictures covered the walls. A family, parents, and 2 children. All human. All gone. On the kitchen table sat 2 bowls of rice. The food had long since spoiled, but the bowls remained exactly where someone had placed them. Chopsticks lay beside them. 2 chairs were pulled out, as if people had been sitting there moments ago. They were eating, Rena observed. Interrupted mid-meal. Thane moved to the living room. A holographic display showed a paused entertainment program. Children's toys scattered across the floor. A book lay open on the couch, a marker holding someone's place. No panic, Thane muttered. No rush. They just stopped existing. Reports flooded in from other teams across the planet. New York showed the same pattern. Mumbai, Lagos, every city told the same impossible story. People had been going about their normal lives when something happened, something that made them all disappear at once. Historian Galen arrived on Earth 3 days into the investigation. The elderly Zephyrin scholar had spent decades studying human culture. He had read their literature, watched their films, listened to their music. He understood them better than most aliens ever would. "You're looking in the wrong places," Galen told Thane. "Humans were planners. If something happened, they prepared for it. We need to find their command centers, their military facilities." Thane considered this. The old capital, the government buildings, would those still be operational? Only one way to find out. They traveled to what humans had called Washington. The government buildings stood empty like everything else. But here, Thane noticed something different. Security systems that shouldn't be active, blast doors that had been recently sealed, underground access points that showed signs of heavy use. There, Galen pointed to a nondescript building. That wasn't in any tourist records. Military installation. Breaking through the security took Rena 3 hours. Her quantum mind finally cracked codes that human programmers had designed to be unbreakable. The doors hissed open, revealing a shaft descending deep into the earth. The facility beneath the city was massive. Corridors stretched in every direction. Server rooms hummed with active computers, and everywhere evidence of recent human presence. Coffee cups still sitting on desks, uniform jackets hanging on hooks, a child's drawing taped to a wall with the words, "Come home safe, Dad," written in crayon. They found the command center at the facility's heart. Dozens of workstations surrounded a central holographic display. And there, waiting in the main computer, they found files. Thousands of them, all encrypted with military-grade security. Rena worked on the encryption. Days passed. Thane explored the facility, finding more questions than answers. Storage rooms filled with supplies, barracks that had housed thousands, launch bays for spacecraft that were no longer there. Commander Yule grew increasingly impatient. "This is pointless. While we waste time here, the Draxi Empire could be claiming human worlds." "Then leave," Thane said coldly. "I'll call you when we find something worth your attention." On the 7th day, Rena broke through the encryption. The files opened, and the investigation team gathered around the displays. What they read made their blood run cold. Humanity had been watching something for years, maybe decades. Long-range sensors had detected anomalies at the galactic edge. Signatures that didn't match any known phenomenon, movement patterns that suggested intelligence, purpose. The humans had investigated, sent probe ships, analyzed ancient ruins on dead worlds, and they had found evidence of something terrible, a cycle, an extinction event that had repeated every 50 million years, something that came from the darkness between galaxies to harvest advanced civilizations. The files called them Reavers. "This can't be real," Rena whispered. "If something like this existed, we would know." Galen shook his head slowly. 50 million years. Civilizations rise and fall. Records are lost. Maybe some species did know. Maybe they tried to warn others, but who would believe them? Thane found another file. Recent. Dated just days before humanity vanished. A military briefing, fleet positions, resource allocations, and a title that made his hands shake. Operation Last Stand, Final Deployment Orders. He opened the file. Inside was a recorded message. A human in military uniform stood at attention. The name tag on his chest read, Captain June. Thane played the message. "If you're watching this," Captain June said, "then humanity is gone from our worlds. Don't mourn us. We made this choice freely. Every one of us." He paused, and something that might have been a smile crossed his face. "We detected the Reavers 3 years ago. We tried to warn you. The Council called us paranoid, warmongers looking for an excuse to build more weapons. So we stopped asking for help. We prepared ourselves." The message continued. 4.2 billion humans have boarded our ships, generation vessels, war platforms, everything we could build in secret. We're not running away. We're forming a defensive line between the Reavers and you. We're going to buy you time. Use it wisely. The recording ended. The command center fell silent. Commander Yule stood frozen. His aggressive posture had melted away, replaced by something resembling shock. "They knew," Rena said softly. "They knew something was coming, and they went to face it. Alone." Thane looked at the empty workstations around him, at the child's drawing on the wall, at the evidence of billions of people who had left their homes, their world, everything they knew. Not because they were running away, because they were running toward danger to protect others. "We need to tell the Council," he said. "We need to tell them everything." Galen walked to the child's drawing. He touched it gently. The humans have a saying, "Actions speak louder than words." They vanished without a word because they knew we wouldn't listen. So they decided to show us instead what they were willing to do. The investigation team gathered every piece of data they could find, every file, every message, every bit of evidence about what humanity had discovered and what they had chosen to do about it. As they prepared to leave Earth, Thane took one last look at the planet. Somewhere out there in the darkness, billions of humans were facing an enemy alone. An enemy they had tried to warn others about. An enemy they were fighting to give the galaxy time to prepare. "We abandoned them," he said quietly. "No," Galen replied. "They left us. There's a difference. They made a choice. Now, we have to decide what we'll do with the time they're buying." The fleet jumped to hyperspace, carrying news that would shake the galaxy to its core. Behind them, Earth's automated systems continued their endless tasks, maintaining a world for people who might never return home. The council chamber had never been this full. Representatives from every member species crowded into the space. News of the investigation findings had spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Everyone wanted to hear the truth about humanity's disappearance. Chancellor Vexes stood at the central podium, his feathers ruffled with agitation. The Avarian leader had spent 20 years dismissing human concerns about galactic security. Now those dismissals seemed to weigh heavily on him. "Investigator Thane will present his findings," Vexes announced. His voice lacked its usual confidence. Thane stepped forward. Behind him, holographic displays activated, showing images from Earth and the other human worlds. The assembly fell silent. "Humanity discovered an approaching threat 3 years ago," Thane began. "They called it the Reavers, an autonomous war fleet that cycles through the galaxy every 50 million years, harvesting advanced civilizations." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Some species scoffed. Others leaned forward with interest. "Impossible," someone shouted. "We would have records of such a thing." 50 million years, Thane replied. "Civilizations don't last that long. Records are lost. Ruins are buried. The humans found evidence on 17 different worlds. Ancient warnings. Archaeological sites showing similar destruction patterns across different time periods, all pointing to the same cycle." Dr. Mira floated forward, her crystalline form catching the light. "I analyzed the human data personally. The mathematical models are sound. The evidence is compelling. If the humans were correct, the Reaver Vanguard should be entering the Outer Rim approximately now." Admiral Corvin stood abruptly. "And where are the humans? What did they do?" Thane activated another display. Captain June's recorded message played for the entire council. The chamber watched in absolute silence as the human officer explained his species' choice. When the message ended, chaos erupted. Species shouted over each other. Some demanded verification. Others called for military mobilization. A few still insisted the humans were lying or mistaken. Chancellor Vexus slammed his staff against the podium, calling for order. "This is speculation, ancient evidence, and human paranoia. We have no proof that these Reavers exist." "Then explain where 4 billion humans went," Thane challenged. "Explain why they abandoned their homes. Explain why every piece of evidence points to them forming a defensive line at the galactic edge." "Perhaps they're hiding?" Vexus suggested weakly. "Building an empire in secret." Dr. Mira's voice cut through the argument like crystal chimes. "Sensor data from the rim, transmitted 4 hours ago." A new display activated. Long-range sensor readings from Council observation posts at the galaxy's edge. At first, the display showed nothing unusual. Then Mira highlighted a section of space that should have been empty. It wasn't empty. Something massive was moving through the darkness. The sensor readings were faint, distorted by distance and interference, but they were there. Thousands of objects, each one the size of a small moon, moving in formation with mechanical precision. "That's impossible," someone whispered. "Nothing that big can move that fast." "The human data predicted exactly this," Mira said. "Approximate numbers, formation patterns, velocity, everything matches." The chamber fell silent. Every representative stared at the display, watching the approaching threat that they had refused to believe existed. Thane activated another file. The humans left detailed information about the Reavers. Based on their research, these machines are millions of years old, self-replicating, self-repairing. Their only purpose is to harvest civilizations that reach a certain level of technological advancement. "Why?" Corvin asked. The Admiral's voice was quiet, almost gentle. "Why do they do this?" The humans found several theories in ancient ruins: resource collection, preventing competition, maybe just following original programming that's long outlived its creators. The why doesn't matter, only the what. And what they do is exterminate advanced life. Historian Galen stepped forward. The elderly scholar looked even older now, his feathers dulled with grief. "I've studied humanity for decades. I know their history, their wars, their conflicts. They've made mistakes, but they've also shown remarkable courage. When faced with impossible odds, they don't run, they fight." He activated a new display. "This is what the humans did. They converted their generation ships, every civilian vessel, every exploration craft. They stripped their worlds of resources to build weapons, and they moved their entire population to the galactic edge." The display showed tactical readouts, human defensive positions, fleet deployments, orbital fortresses constructed from asteroid bases. All of it positioned between the approaching Reavers and Council space. 4.2 billion humans, Galen continued. Every adult, every teenager old enough to train. They sent their youngest children away on hidden colony ships. Everyone else volunteered to fight. "Volunteered to die," Corvin corrected quietly. "Yes," Galen agreed. "Because they knew we wouldn't listen. They tried warning us. We called them paranoid, aggressive. We accused them of militarism when they were preparing to defend us all." Chancellor Vexus sank into his seat. His feathers lay flat against his body, a sign of deep shame among his species. "What have we done?" The displays shifted again. Thane brought up more human data. The humans calculated they could hold the Reavers for approximately 200 years. Maybe 300 if they're lucky and the enemy doesn't commit their full forces. They knew it was a one-way mission. They went anyway. Rena, the young Civith technician, added her analysis. "Human defensive positions are brilliant. They've created choke points using asteroid fields and stellar phenomena. They're using guerrilla tactics. Hit and run. The Reavers will have to fight for every light year. But they can't win, Mira said softly. The numbers are impossible. Even with perfect tactics, even with their courage, the math doesn't favor them. Silence fell over the chamber again. Every species present understood mathematics. Numbers didn't lie. Humanity had bought them time by sacrificing themselves. They're still sending transmissions, Thane said. Encrypted military communications, tactical updates. We can't decrypt most of them, but we picked up some general broadcasts. Messages meant for anyone who might be listening. He played an audio file. Static filled the chamber, then cleared. A human voice spoke, tired but steady. This is Defensive Station Echo 7. Reaver contact in Sector 49. We're holding position. Tell our families we're thinking of them. Tell everyone else to use the time wisely. Another voice. Younger. Fighter Wing Delta reporting. We just took down their scout group. Cost us 12 pilots. Worth it. These things can be beaten. Don't give up. More voices. Dozens of them. Hundreds. All human. All facing death in the darkness. All making jokes, sending messages, encouraging each other. Not one asking to come home. Admiral Corvin stood. The proud Draxi warrior had tears on his scales. I fought humans in 3 wars. I called them aggressive, dangerous. I was wrong. They're warriors, the finest I've ever encountered. They're fighting for us, for everyone, and we're sitting here debating whether to believe them. He turned to face Chancellor Vexus. I'm taking my fleet to the Rim, to join the humans. Who's coming with me? The chamber erupted in voices. Some species pledged their support immediately. Others hesitated, unsure. A few still doubted, clinging to the hope that this was all some elaborate human deception. Dr. Mira floated to the center of the chamber. Her crystalline body glowed with inner light. I've calculated the probabilities. If we mobilize every ship in Council space immediately, combine our forces with the humans, and fight with everything we have, we might have a 30% chance of survival. If we wait, if we debate, if we doubt, that percentage drops to 0. The humans knew these odds, Galen added. They faced them alone anyway, because it was the right thing to do. Chancellor Vexus stood slowly. The weight of his decisions seemed to age him years in moments. I was wrong. About humanity. About the threat. About everything. He straightened his posture. The Council mobilizes immediately. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier. We go to the Rim. We stand with humanity. The vote was called. It passed unanimously. As representatives rushed to contact their homeworlds, Thane stood before the displays showing the approaching Reaver fleet. Somewhere between those monsters and civilized space, billions of humans fought and died. They had vanished without a word because they knew words wouldn't be enough. Their silence had spoken louder than any speech. Now the galaxy was finally listening. Commander Yule approached Thane. The Draxi officer looked different now, humbled. I wanted to claim their worlds, take what they left behind. I feel shame. Then make it right, Thane replied. Fight beside them. Honor their sacrifice by surviving. That's what they wanted. That's why they left. Outside the chamber, the galaxy stirred to life. Shipyards activated. Factories switched to military production. Soldiers said goodbye to their families. Different species that had never fully trusted each other began working together with single purpose. Humanity had bought them time. Now they had to prove themselves worthy of that gift. The Council fleet would take 3 weeks to assemble and reach the Rim. 3 weeks while humans held the line alone. 3 weeks that would feel like an eternity. Commander Yule stood in the command center of his flagship, watching disaster unfold in real time. 3 days ago, he had ignored orders and led a Draxi battle group into former human territory. The Council was too slow, too cautious. His people would be the first to engage the enemy, the first to claim glory. Now they were simply the first to die. "Reaper contact!" the sensor officer screamed. "Multiple signatures! They're everywhere!" The displays showed what remained of the Draxi occupation force, 73 ships when they arrived. Now 38. The Reavers had appeared without warning, dropping out of faster-than-light travel directly into their formation. Yul watched his ships die. The enemy vessels were enormous, dark metal constructs that seemed to absorb light. They moved with impossible precision, no wasted motion, no hesitation, each shot calculated to maximum effect. A Draxi destroyer exploded on the display. Then another. The Reavers weren't even using their main weapons. These were just scouts, vanguard elements testing the defenses. "All ships, scatter!" Yul ordered. "Reform at Rally Point Beta!" His fleet tried to retreat. The Reavers followed, not pursuing, herding, driving them towards something. Then Pilot Sora's voice came over the comm, high with panic. "Commander, there's something ahead, something massive. It's blocking our escape route." The main display shifted. Ahead of the fleeing Draxi ships, space twisted and tore. Something emerged that made Yul's blood turn to ice. A Reaver mothership. The thing was the size of a small planet. Weapon ports covered its surface like the scales on a serpent. "We're dead," someone whispered. The mothership's weapons charged. Energy readings went off the scale. In seconds, it would fire. The entire Draxi fleet would be vaporized. Then space around them lit up with weapons fire. Automated defense platforms materialized from stealth, human constructs that had been hiding in the asteroid field. Railguns, missile batteries, beam weapons, all firing in perfect coordination. The Reaver scouts died first. The platforms targeted them with ruthless efficiency, overwhelming their shields through sheer volume of fire. Then the platforms turned on the mothership. They couldn't hurt it. The thing's shields were too powerful. But they made it pause, made it recalculate. And in that moment of hesitation, new ships appeared. Human ships. They were smaller than the Reaver vessels. Faster. They moved like a school of fish, perfectly synchronized. Each ship knew exactly where the others would be. No communication delays. Just pure tactical coordination. "This is Human Defensive Fleet, call sign Typhoon," a voice spoke over open channels. "Draxi vessels follow our lead. We're getting you out." The human ships formed a protective screen around the Draxi fleet. They fired, retreated, fired again. Using the asteroids as cover, drawing the Reavers into killing zones where the automated platforms could target them. Pilot Sora found herself flying in formation with human fighters. Her squadron had been cut off, separated from the main fleet. The human pilots didn't ask questions. They just flew beside her, covering her blind spots, calling out threats. "Sora, right side, Reaper drone incoming," a human pilot called. His name tag showed Taeyang. Sora rolled her fighter, barely dodging the attack. Taeyang's wingman took the shot, destroying the drone. They moved as one unit, human and Draxi, fighting together. The battle lasted 3 hours, the longest 3 hours of Yul's life. The human fleet gave ground slowly, methodically. Every retreat was planned. Every position sacrificed only when it had served its purpose. But the cost was terrible. Yul watched human ships die protecting his people, watched pilots sacrifice themselves to save Draxi soldiers, watched automated defense stations self-destruct to take Reaver vessels with them. When the human commander finally ordered full retreat, half the human fleet was gone. But 32 Draxi ships survived, ships that should have been destroyed. The combined fleet jumped to hyperspace, leaving the Reavers behind. For now. In the aftermath, Yul met with the human fleet commander. She appeared on the view screen, a woman with tired eyes and a captain's uniform. Her name tag read, "Hi." "Thank you," Yul said. The words felt inadequate. "You saved us. After everything we did, after occupying your worlds, you still saved us." Hay shrugged. "That's what soldiers do. We protect people." even people who don't like us very much. I was wrong about humanity, Yule admitted. I thought you were aggressive, violent. I didn't understand. We are violent, Hai replied. We're very good at it. We've spent our entire history fighting, wars, conflicts. We know violence intimately, but we learned something from all that fighting. We learned that violence should have purpose, that strength exists to protect the weak. She leaned forward, her expression hardening. Those things out there, they don't protect anything. They just destroy. And we won't let them destroy anyone else. Not while we're still breathing. Dr. Mira joined the communication from her research vessel. She had been analyzing the Reaper technology, studying the wreckage from destroyed vessels. Commander Hay, my analysis is complete. These machines are worse than we feared. They're self-replicating. Every ship they destroy, every resource they harvest, they use to build more of themselves. And their main fleet hasn't even arrived yet. We know, Haya said quietly. We've been fighting them for 3 months. We've seen what they can do. Mira's crystalline form flickered with distress. Then you understand. You can't win. The mathematics are impossible. For every Reaver you destroy, 5 more take its place. We're not trying to win, Hai replied. We're trying to buy time. There's a difference. Admiral Corvin's fleet arrived 2 weeks later. The Council had mobilized faster than anyone expected. 10,000 ships from a dozen species, all converging on the defensive line humanity had established. Corvin stood on his flagship's bridge as they approached the human positions. What he saw stunned him. The humans had turned the galactic rim into a fortress, asteroid bases, mine fields, automated weapons platforms, fleet staging areas hidden in nebulae. And everywhere, human ships, thousands of them, most showing battle damage, all still fighting. My God, Corvin whispered, they've been doing this alone for months. The tactical displays showed the situation. The Reaver main fleet was still weeks away, but their vanguard elements were already engaged across a front spanning hundreds of light years. Every day humans fought dozens of battles. Every day they died by the thousands, and every day they held the line. Corvin's communications officer intercepted human military chatter, dozens of channels, hundreds of voices. All human, all calm despite the desperate situation. Station Omega reporting. We're down to 40% ammunition. Request resupply. Fighter Wing Alpha, we've got Reaper scouts in Sector 7 moving to intercept. Medical ship requesting escort. We've got wounded that need evacuation. This is Destroyer Indomitable. We've taken critical damage, reactors failing. We're going to ram that Reaper mothership. Tell our families we love them. Corvin listened to that last message and felt something break inside him. These people, these humans he had called primitive and aggressive, they were fighting with a courage he had never witnessed. Open a channel, he ordered. All human vessels. This is Admiral Corvin of the Draxi Imperial Fleet. The Council has arrived. You're not alone anymore. The response came from multiple human commanders simultaneously. Relief, gratitude, but also determination. Welcome to the party, Commander Hay transmitted. Hope you brought ammunition. We're going to need a lot of it. The combined fleet established defensive positions. Human commanders briefed Council forces on Reaver tactics, shared their hard-won knowledge, explained what worked and what didn't. Pilot Sora found herself assigned to a mixed squadron, humans, Draxi, Sivith, and others, all training together, learning from each other. Taeyang, the human pilot who had saved her life, became her wingman. She asked him once why he had done it. Why risk his life for an enemy? You weren't my enemy, he replied simply. You were just someone who needed help. That's enough. The main Reaver fleet arrived 3 days later. Long-range sensors detected them first. 100,000 vessels, each one massive, each one ancient and deadly. They moved through space like a swarm of locusts, consuming everything in their path. The Council fleet and human forces watched them approach. Every species present understood what was coming. This wasn't going to be a battle. It was going to be a war. A war that would decide the fate of the entire galaxy. Commander Hay stood on her flagship's bridge, looking at the tactical displays. The odds were impossible. The enemy was overwhelming. But beside her ships were Council vessels, species that had once dismissed humanity now standing with them. "All ships," she transmitted. "This is it, the big one. When we chose to come out here, we knew it might end like this, but we made a promise. We promised to buy time, to give the galaxy a chance, and we're going to keep that promise." She paused, then smiled. "Besides, we've got friends now. Let's show these machines what the galaxy can do when we fight together." Across the fleet, human and alien crews prepared for battle. In the silence before the storm, they said prayers, made jokes, and thought of home. The Reavers advanced. The fleet moved to meet them. The war had begun. The battle had been raging for 17 days, 17 days of constant fighting, no breaks, no respite. The Reavers attacked in waves, endless and relentless, each wave bigger than the last, each one pushing the defensive line back a little further. In the council chambers, Chancellor Vexus watched the tactical displays with growing horror. The numbers told a story of slow defeat. Ship counts dropping, defensive positions falling. The line was holding, but barely. "Current status?" he asked quietly. The military liaison, a Quellan officer, checked her reports. "We've lost 38% of the combined fleet. Human losses are higher, 47%. They keep putting themselves in the most dangerous positions." "Of course they do," historian Galen said from his seat. "They feel responsible. This is their fight. We just joined them." On the display, another human ship died. The destroyer had rammed a Reaver mothership, detonating its reactor core. Both vessels disappeared in a flash of light. One human ship and 1,000 crew. One enemy vessel that could have destroyed dozens more. "They're trading at a loss," the liaison noted. "For every Reaver they destroy, they lose 3 ships. But they're slowing the advance," Galen replied. "Every day we hold is another day for Council worlds to evacuate civilians, to prepare defenses, to build weapons. The humans understand this. They're buying time with their lives." Vexus watched the displays and felt the weight of his failures. 3 years ago, humanity had tried to warn him. He had dismissed them, called them paranoid. If he had listened, if the Council had prepared earlier, how many lives could have been saved? At the front line, Commander Hayes stood in what remained of her flagship's bridge. Half her crew was dead. The ship had taken so much damage it could barely fly, but they were still in the fight. "Commander, we're getting a transmission," her communications officer said. "Multiple channels from human vessels across the fleet." Hay listened. The voices were tired, scared, but determined. "This is Medical Ship Sanctuary. We're out of supplies. We've converted Cargo Bay 3 into a morgue. There's no more room, but we're not leaving. Fighter Wing Delta reporting. Down to 6 operational craft. We'll keep flying until we can't. Station 7 here. We've been boarded. Reavers are in the lower decks. We're venting sections to vacuum, taking them with us." More voices, dozens, hundreds, all telling the same story. Humans fighting against impossible odds, refusing to break, refusing to run. Then one voice cut through all the others. Young, maybe 18 years old. "This is Ensign Minho, service number 773 Alpha. My ship is gone. My whole crew is gone. I'm in an escape pod with a few hours of life support left. I'm drifting toward a Reaver destroyer. I've got 1 torpedo left. Manual guidance. I'm going to make it count." Hai closed her eyes. "Minho, this is Commander Hay. You don't have to do this. We can recover you." "No time, Commander. They're about to overrun the medical ships. Someone has to slow them down." A pause. Tell my family I wasn't scared. Tell them I remembered what you always say. We protect people. That's what soldiers do." The communication cut off. On the tactical display, a tiny blip moved toward a Reaper vessel, then both disappeared in an explosion. Hay felt tears on her face. She didn't bother wiping them away. Around her, the bridge crew worked in silence. They had all lost friends, family, but they kept working, because that's what you did. You kept going until you couldn't anymore. Admiral Corvin was fighting his own battle 3 sectors away. His fleet had engaged a Reaver battle group, trying to prevent them from flanking the main defensive line. The fighting was brutal, close range, ship to ship. A human carrier exploded beside his flagship. He watched life pods eject, carrying survivors. The Reavers targeted the pods. They always did, eliminating any potential future threats. But Draxi fighters intercepted. Sora led her squadron, her mixed unit of human and alien pilots, diving into the formation. They destroyed the Reaver drones, saved the life pods. 3 fighters were lost in the process. 2 human, 1 Draxi. "Why?" Corvin whispered. "Why do we keep dying for each other?" Dr. Mira answered him from her research vessel. "Because that's what civilized beings do. We protect each other. The Reavers can't understand that. They're machines, programmed to destroy, but we're alive. We care. That's our advantage. That's our strength." "Our strength is getting us killed," Corvin replied bitterly. "Better to die protecting others than live as a coward," Mira said. "The humans taught us that. On Earth, automated systems maintained empty cities. Parks remained clean. Buildings stood secure. Everything running perfectly for a population that might never return. But in deep space, far beyond where any council member had ever traveled, something was happening. The youngest human children, sent away before the war began, were growing up on hidden colony ships, being raised by teachers and elders who told them stories. Stories of parents who fought so their children could live. Stories of a species that faced extinction to protect others. Stories of courage and sacrifice and hope. These children would remember, and someday, if humanity survived, they would return home. They would rebuild, and they would carry the memory of what their people had done. Back at the front, the situation was deteriorating. The Reavers had broken through in 3 sectors. Council forces were being pushed back. The defensive line was collapsing. Chancellor Vexus received the reports with a heavy heart. "How long until the Reavers reach inhabited worlds?" 3 weeks, the military liaison reported. "Maybe 4. "Then we evacuate," Vexus decided. "Pull all ships back. Save what we can." "No," the voice came from the communication display. Commander Hay appeared, her uniform torn and burned. Behind her, alarms flashed. Smoke filled her bridge. "With respect, Chancellor, we're not retreating. Commander, the math is clear. We cannot win this battle. Better to save our forces, regroup, prepare defenses at inhabited worlds." "You mean abandon the line," Ha said flatly. "Let the Reavers through. Give them access to billions of civilians. We don't have a choice." "There's always a choice." Ha stood straighter. "Chancellor, the human fleet isn't retreating. We're staying. We'll hold this line as long as we can. Buy you more time." "You'll die," Vexus said quietly. "Yes," Hay agreed. "But we knew that when we came here. Every human in this fleet volunteered knowing we probably wouldn't survive. We made peace with that. What we can't accept is running away, not when people need us." Other human commanders joined the transmission, all saying the same thing. They would stay, they would fight, until the end. Admiral Corvin stood. "Then the Draxi fleet stays too. I won't let humans fight alone." Pilot Sora's voice came over the comm. "My squadron votes to stay, all of us. We fight together." More species joined in. Sivith, Quellan, Lumentis. One by one, ship commanders pledged to hold the line. Vexus looked at them all. These brave souls from across the galaxy united against extinction. Humanity had brought them together. Human courage had inspired them. Human sacrifice had showed them what truly mattered. "Then we all stay," Vexus said. "We hold this line. Together." The battle intensified. The Reavers threw everything at them. Wave after wave, endless attacks. But the line held. It held because humans showed others how to fight, how to coordinate, how to use tactics against overwhelming odds. It held because the Council species learned from their allies, adapted, grew stronger together than they ever were apart. It held because everyone present made a choice, not to run, not to hide, but to stand and fight for something bigger than themselves. 3 days later, a miracle happened. Long-range sensors detected new signatures, reinforcements from deeper in Council space. The second wave, twice as many ships as the first fleet, built in the weeks since the war began, crewed by volunteers who had heard about the battle and came to help. The Reavers began to slow their advance. The overwhelming numbers that had seemed infinite started to thin. The machines were calculating, reassessing. For the first time, they faced an enemy that wouldn't break. That grew stronger, even as it bled. Commander Hay watched the tactical displays change. The red markers representing Reaver vessels began to retreat, not fleeing, regrouping. But for the first time since the battle began, they weren't advancing. "We're holding them," she whispered. "We're actually holding them." The war was far from over. The fighting would continue for years, maybe decades. But the impossible had happened. The line had held. The galaxy had been given time. Time to prepare. Time to build. Time to unite. And it had all started because one species made a choice to sacrifice everything to protect others. 10 years later, a memorial was built on Axiom Prime. A simple monument. No grand statues, just a wall with names. 4 billion names. Every human who had volunteered for the defensive line. At the top, an inscription read, "They vanished without a word, and in their silence spoke volumes about sacrifice." Beside it, another inscription, newer, added by the Council, "We heard them, we answered, we stand together." Chancellor Vexus visited the memorial often. He was old now, retired, but he still came to remember, to honor, to ensure that future generations would never forget. Historian Galen stood beside him one day. The Zephyrin scholar was ancient, his feathers white with age, but his eyes were still sharp. "They came back, you know," Galen said. "Some of them. About 30% of the original defenders survived the war. They returned to their worlds, rebuilt their lives." "And the children?" Vexus asked. "Growing up, learning, preparing. Humanity will survive. They're too stubborn to do anything else." Vexus smiled. "We called them aggressive, warlike. We were afraid of them." "We should have been grateful for them," Galen replied. "They were exactly what the galaxy needed. Warriors who knew when to fight, soldiers who understood that strength exists to protect the weak." A human woman approached the memorial, young, maybe in her 20s. She placed flowers at the base, touched a name on the wall with gentle fingers. Vexus watched her. "Someone you knew?" "My father," she replied. "He was on Commander Hayes' ship, communications officer. He died 3 months before the war ended, never got to see his children grow up." "I'm sorry," Vexus said. The woman smiled. "Don't be. He made a choice. To protect others. To give children like me a future. That choice mattered. He mattered." She walked away, leaving the flowers, leaving a memory. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Not just about external threats, but about each other. About courage, about sacrifice, about the power of standing together against darkness. Humanity had vanished without a word. But their silence had taught the galaxy to listen, to care, to fight for something bigger than themselves. And that lesson would echo through the ages, long after the last human name was carved into stone, long after the wars were won and peace returned. Because some silences speak louder than any words ever could, the galaxy would never forget.